Hello, well, it's me again, the internet's least popular RWBY critic. Today I want to address a criticism that RWBY critics such as myself, the Floof Artist, and Mediocrity4 have made that is completely wrong and unjustified. Now, one of the most common types of errors with RWBY you'll find are animation errors. These are extremely prominent in fight scenes, but the most commonly discussed are continuity errors that became a lot more common from Volume 4 onwards. What do I mean? Take a look at some of the Floof Artist RWBY has broken videos and count how many times he points out characters teleporting between shots. The response given from most critics that I must admit I have made too is that RWBY should animate first and place the camera second, but recently I've begun to think otherwise and confirm whether or not this criticism is valid and makes sense. I've gotten into contact with an actual 3D animator, the Animation Hitster. Now, probably no one remembers this, but I once did a video telling people to check him out, and I stand by that. Check out his content, he's pretty good. But most importantly for me, he does 3D animation. So one of the things that a lot of us critics seem not to think about is that storyboards exist. And storyboards are important because they lay out camera angles and help to pre-visualize films, TV shows, and 3D animations. One needs only look at films like How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, or any Pixar film, and they'll notice how they have storyboards that clearly have intended camera angles that are set up before things are animated. By look at films, I mean look at the making of, you know what I mean. Indeed, according to Animation Hipster, before any animation software is even opened, everything is storyboarded. So shot composition, timing, and poses are drawn out and finalized before you even get to putting a model into an area. Then the layout team will take those storyboards and lay out the compositions in Maya with all the camera angles fixed. This will include placing the characters in the correct positions, both on point A and point B, if they are moving between two locations. If someone were to follow the stupid advice us critics gave, there will be very vague and unorganized posing and positioning of characters. The animation will be viewable and might not be awful, but it means you'll have very poorly silhouetted shots and will have to go through and reanimate them to fit your camera angle. While this isn't impossible, it makes it a much harder and less efficient method to do your animation. It also wastes time because not all the animation you do will be in the camera angle that you choose. So if you animate a walk cycle but the shot you decide to use doesn't have the actual feet moving in it, you're going to lose time to work on a project because you spend time animating something that won't be in the project. Now, once or twice, that might not be too big a problem, but over a long production schedule, those individual moments of wasting time will build up. So, does this excuse RWBY's animation problems? Not at all, but it does prove that not all things us RWBY critics say is accurate. Why do we make these mistakes? Well, it's simple. Media isn't an animator. Floof only animates in hand-drawn 2D animation, and I only animate in sprite and pivot animation. While it is completely fair for us to criticize the animation itself, we are not qualified to give advice on how to improve their animation when none of us have the necessary knowledge to understand what goes into its production. It'd be one thing for Floof and I to say what they could do to improve if the improvement is the very basics of animation, like if you're going to do a slow motion shot, you need more frames in a regular shot to sell the effect, otherwise it's going to look like this. But for any of us to claim this is the benefit of 3D without doing any research is a poor showing on our part, and I apologize for that. I won't apologize for Floof or media because why should I apologize for someone? But what can RWBY actually do to improve? Well, don't take this from me, take this from the Animation Hitster, someone who knows what the hell he's doing. The best choice would be to have a single layout artist working on an entire scene. Specifically, for each individual scene, have one layout artist block out positions, placement, angles, and such for the animators to follow. RWBY has bad layout. He sent me this video, which I'll play some of for you now, but I have absolutely no idea what the problem is because I am not a 3D animator, and I'm not sure all of you will either. Maybe you will, maybe I'm just dumb, maybe I'm just blind, but for a 3D animator, this is apparently obviously bad. Now what Rooster Teeth is likely doing is having multiple layout artists working on a single scene. You see, you want to have one layout artist on one scene. A scene will obviously involve multiple shots, and as such, one layout artist blocking out and positioning things from shot to shot will have a much easier time ensuring consistency. They will be able to make sure the position B of shot 1 will be the same place as in position A of shot 2. Ensuring that when the first shot ends, the place the character was will be in the same place they start in the next shot. This ensures consistency. When you have multiple different layout artists and bad communication, you will end up with inconsistencies like what RWBY has. Now the funny thing here is that a lot of people try to defend RWBY by saying that Rooster Teeth is a small company with a small budget. Speaking now from what I've researched, that's not entirely accurate. According to Rooster Teeth themselves, they have 419 employees as of July this year, while studios like Mappa only have 145 and Studio Orange only have 90. Now let's look at what these three companies can do. Yeah, you will notice a difference, and the less we go into the size of Madhouse, the better. If we look at budgets, the estimated budget I've seen for RWBY ranges anywhere between 200k per episode to 40,000k per minute. I didn't bother converting to see how it would be. Not important. Taking the first one, however, this would mean that Volume 6 had around a $2.6 million budget. Now, the average 13-episode anime season also has a budget of around $2 million. However, most of these predictions are based on how much RWBY would have cost between Volumes 1 to 4, not how much it is now, when RWBY clearly has higher production values. In fact, Volume 5 was prefaced with having 3 times the budget of earlier volumes. And RWBY has the advantage of not being chained down to a networks. Now, I can't be sure on this. I can't be sure what Full Screen is making Rooster Teeth do, or if they're having any influence at all, but I haven't found any evidence to support that they are chaining down when RWBY has to come out. So if they're not, then Rooster Teeth has more leniency with deadlines and such than other shows like those from Japan would. See, a lot of anime have issues with scheduling, getting out all the work they have to get done within a short amount of time because that's the amount of time they're given. RWBY, from what I know, won't have the same problem because Rooster Teeth are in charge of when they bring things out because there's no network in charge of them. But once again, don't take my word on that. I don't know what Full Screen might be telling them to do. Additionally, RWBY also gives roles from voice actors that are friends and acquaintances of the people behind the show in general, so RWBY likely doesn't need as big a budget as something like Land of the Lustrous, One Punch Man, Garo and such, which all had around the $2.6 million budget. Actually, I don't know about Land of the Lustrous, I didn't check that. So with that in mind, it seems to me that the issue with RWBY is that they have too many people working on it. There are too many layout artists and animators who aren't communicating well enough between each other, the storyboarders, and the directors. As such, you will end up with these errors. In summation, RWBY critics like myself and the two mentioned are wrong. The solution to the problem brought up is not at all what we've stated, rather what we have suggested would make the issue worse and more obvious. But at the same time, RWBY fans defending with the small size of the company are also incorrect. The best solution for this would be to take people off of the RWBY crew and have a limited amount of highly skilled layout artists to ensure consistency between shots. Now, if you're one of those chronic RWBY haters thinking that Annie Hip is trying to defend RWBY's animation despite its lack of quality and is ignoring that the show is bad, you're wrong. He also has grievances with the animation. He is just fair enough to tell people less informed of 3D animation when their criticisms and claims aren't accurately representing the production of the show. And if you're a chronic RWBY defender thinking I hate RWBY because I'm pointing out an issue and how it can be improved, you're done. Thank you once again to the Animation Hipster for helping me get a better understanding of the production and storyboarding of 3D animation. Please check him out, and while you're at it, maybe even check out Meteor and Floof, although if you watch me, it's likely you've also seen their content. Like I said, I'm the least popular RWBY critic around, and I mean that in terms of the amount of people who know about me, not the amount of negativity I've gotten, because let's be honest, people probably hate Floofy a lot more than any other RWBY critic.